I've been thinking about this video for a long time, actually 2 videos, since this one is just a preliminary to set up the basic principle that you have to consider the alternatives before condemning something. I had to think about it a lot just to sort out my thoughts on it, and I really don't think I have it all worked out yet, especially the second part, which I've rewritten many times. And let me say right now, before I get to some of the usual comments, that I'm well aware I'm not covering every aspect of the issue. This is a fairly short video, not a college doctorate thesis. This isn't about covering every aspect. Mainly, I hope these 2 videos just give you something to think about. I know both videos, especially the next one, will be pretty risky because I'm well aware of how people can misrepresent and twist them. But then, that's kind of what this channel has mostly been about. That is, showing how people misrepresent and twist what people actually say. My main point is going to be more about age gap relationships, particularly large ones, and some things I think people need to think about before judging. That will be the focus of the next video. This one will be about a different subject for an example of the same principle, but one which can still bother people. The principle is simple, and I call it, what is the alternative? Years ago, there was a big stink about Nike selling expensive sneakers manufactured in a third world country. But while the sneakers were expensive, the workers were only paid 20 cents per hour and may have had to work 10 hours a day for 6 days a week. Also, the working conditions weren't always as safe as we would think they should be. To a Westerner or anyone from a first world country, this sounds really bad. But what are the alternatives? Consider having to work 60 hours per week rather than the typical 40 in the United States. Let me point out some things. One is that when I've read about entrepreneurs, it was common to see it said that they should expect to be working 80 hours a week for the first years of the business. No one says that is bad. So, to me, the issue isn't about the hours, but the work compared to the pay, and the fact that the entrepreneur is doing the extra hours voluntarily, not forced. On the other hand, in spite of his long hours, the odds are that his business will fail anyway, and he'll also have lost his entire investment. The point is, even 60 hours a week isn't necessarily a problem. Another thing, what if someone wants to work 60 hours per week so he can take home more money? We are talking about poor countries where every dollar matters. It may make someone feel good to tell a company they can't let anyone work more than, say, 48 hours including overtime. But you are also telling that worker that he can't make as much money as he may want or need. You see, there is no perfect solution, but you need to be aware of what the various issues are instead of taking a simplistic view. Negative publicity like Nike receives can cause a company, if they have to pay more to protect their public image, to take their manufacturing to a country where there is a more established manufacturing industry and better trained workers, because they can produce more shoes for that additional pay, which means those most in need of jobs have missed out. While we in the West may view those jobs as being really bad, when you compare them to the alternatives in those countries, they may be considered great opportunities by the people living there. Can it be abusive? Sure, anything can be abused. But do you really think a business going into a country where the people may be working well over 10 hours a day on small family farms with little money coming in, or other jobs which may pay 15 cents an hour, is really abusing people if they have them working 60 hours a day for 20 cents an hour? You must consider their alternatives, which may well be worse. Or even if the business pays the same as existing jobs, they're adding to the total job availability, which means more people are working. Do you know what happens when more jobs are available? The competition for workers increases, especially workers with experience, which lets them demand higher pay over time. More skilled workers also means more companies come in, because while they may not have wanted the really low-skilled workers, they do want those with experience. It's a process to move a country out of third world status. It's also a slow process. You might say, keep the factories there, but raise the pay. Okay, so let's say Nike does that, which also means prices go up. Meanwhile, some competitor still takes advantage of those workers at lower pay and thus has lower prices. Good chance those do-gooder Western consumers end up buying more of the lower-priced product. Even if the specific do-gooder doesn't, many others will, so the effect is the same. Might as well move to a country with a better manufacturing base to offset the higher pay. We don't have to like things to realize they may be best at any given time in any given place. In our effort to be do-gooders, we may take away good job opportunities. In such poverty-stricken countries, that can mean more starvation, certainly more poverty. It just won't make the evening news or social media, so Westerners will feel good about themselves out of ignorance. I'm also old enough to have seen many countries change from being one that paid little to workers and often made poor quality products into becoming economic powerhouses. When I was a kid, shortly after World War II, we commonly heard the derogatory phrase, "made in Japan." I remember getting a microscope set for my birthday. The wooden box to store it was very poorly made. I remember seeing "Made in Japan" on the box, and even as a kid, I thought, of course. But Japan improved, didn't it? And as it improved, people got paid more until many people in the US were talking about how we needed to copy the Japanese system. There has been a similar situation in South Korea. And, of course, China has been going through the same process, first being attractive simply because labor was so cheap, but building on that, partly because those workers became better trained until much of the world depends on China for their manufacturing, even quality products. I know a big Japanese company that made quality products, but now has their factories in China. However, I would note that a lot of junk still comes out of China, and people I know who have business there have said they have to keep them closely supervised so products are made to the high standards they want. If they don't, some of the Chinese factories start cutting corners. So that Japanese company that moved factories to China has Japanese supervise them. It's all a long, sometimes painful process to get out of poverty. You can't improve a poor nation's situation unless you first realize companies will see the main thing you have to offer at first, which is cheap labor. I'm sure there are plenty of people with a knee-jerk reaction who would just say, "I don't care about the poor." They are wrong. I just recognize the realities of the situation and how much worse the alternatives often are. I'll apply this type of argument in my next video about large age gap relationships. Thanks for watching, and don't let the trolls stop you from speaking out.